There's a virus living inside 95% of adults on Earth right now. You probably got it as a teenager. And a new study just found it may be actively attacking the nervous systems of people with multiple sclerosis.
95%? What virus infects nearly every human alive?
Epstein-Barr virus, EBV. Most people know it as the virus that causes mono, the kissing disease. You catch it, you feel terrible for a few weeks, you recover, and the virus goes dormant in your body. It hides inside your B cells, a type of immune cell, and it stays there for life.
Okay, so nearly everyone has this virus sleeping inside them. That's already unsettling. But what does it have to do with MS?
So, MS, multiple sclerosis, is a disease where your immune system mistakenly attacks myelin. Myelin is the protective coating around nerve fibers in your brain and spinal cord. Think of it like the insulation around electrical wires. When that insulation gets stripped away, the signals misfire, slow down, or stop entirely.
And that causes the symptoms. People with MS experience numbness, vision problems, difficulty walking.
It's devastating. People with MS can experience fatigue, numbness, tingling, muscle weakness, vision problems, difficulty walking, cognitive issues, bladder problems, and it's progressive. It typically gets worse over time. There are treatments that slow the progression, but there's no cure.
How old are people typically when they're diagnosed?
Most people are diagnosed between ages 20 and 40. It hits people in the prime of their lives. Women are about 3 times more likely to develop it than men, and the disease costs are staggering. The average lifetime cost per patient in the US is estimated at over $4 million when you factor in medical care, lost wages, and reduced quality of life.
That's heartbreaking. So, how many people are affected?
Nearly 1 million Americans live with it. Nearly 1 million Americans live with it. And here's what's been bugging scientists for decades. Virtually every single person who develops MS is infected with EBV. Not 80%, not 90%, virtually 100%.
But you just said 95% of all adults carry EBV. So, how do you separate correlation from causation?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's why this took so long to crack. The landmark study came in January 2022 from Harvard. A team led by Alberto Asciurio published a paper in Science that followed 10 million US military personnel over 20 years. They tracked who had EBV and who didn't, and who developed MS.
And what did they find?
The risk of developing MS increased 32-fold after EBV infection, 32 times higher, and in the small group of people who never got infected with EBV, almost none of them developed MS. That was the smoking gun that EBV wasn't just associated with MS, it was likely required for it.
32 times. That's not a subtle association. But required still isn't the same as causes. If 95% of people have EBV and only a fraction get MS, something else must be happening too.
Right. And that's where the brand new study comes in. Published February 5th, 2026 in Nature Immunology by a team at UC San Francisco led by Dr. Joe Sabatino. They found something that starts to explain the mechanism, how EBV actually triggers the disease in some people.
What did they discover?
They looked at a type of immune cell that's been largely overlooked in MS research, CD8 plus killer T cells. These are the assassins of your immune system. Their job is to find and destroy cells that are infected or damaged.
As opposed to the CD4 plus T cells that most MS research has focused on.
Right? CD4 plus T cells are the coordinators. They organize immune responses but don't directly kill anything. They're easier to study in animal models, so that's where most of the attention went. But Sabatino's team decided to look at the killers directly in human patients.
How did they do it?
They analyzed blood and cerebrospinal fluid from 13 patients with MS or early signs of the disease, plus 5 people without MS as controls. They looked specifically at which CD8 plus T cells recognize specific proteins in those fluids.
And
In people without MS, the distribution was even minus similar numbers of these cells in the blood and in the cerebrospinal fluid, normal. But in MS patients, the CD8 plus killer T cells were 10 to 100 times more concentrated in the cerebrospinal fluid than in the blood.
10 to 100 times? That's a massive difference. Something is pulling those killer cells into the nervous system.
Something is pulling them in, or something in the nervous system is making them multiply like crazy. And here's the critical finding. Some of those killer T cells specifically target Epstein-Barr virus.
So EBV targeting killer cells are flooding the nervous system of MS patients. The virus isn't just sitting dormant.
That's what the data suggests. They found EBV itself present in the cerebrospinal fluid of most study participants, both with and without MS. The virus was there either way, but here's the key. They looked at which EBV genes were active.
And found something different in MS patients.
One specific EBV gene was active only in people with MS, not in the healthy controls. This suggests that in MS patients, the virus isn't just hiding quietly, it's doing something. It's expressing a gene that may be driving the overactive immune response that characterizes the disease.
That's a really important detail. So it's not just the presence of the virus, it's that the virus is doing something specific in MS patients that it's not doing in healthy people.
Right? Same virus, same location, different behavior. Something about the MS environment, whether it's genetic, immunological, or something else, allows or encourages EBV to activate this particular gene.
So the theory is that EBV wakes up, or at least partially activates, specifically in the nervous system of MS patients, and that provokes the immune system to send an army of killer cells?
And those killer cells, in their frenzy to attack the virus, may be causing collateral damage to the myelin coating on nerve fibers. It's like calling in an airstrike on a building because there's one enemy combatant inside. You get the target, but you destroy the building too.
That's a devastating analogy. So this isn't molecular mimicry, where the immune system confuses a viral protein with a human protein.
That's a different mechanism, and it may also be at play. A Stanford study from 2022 found that part of the EBV protein mimics a protein made in the brain and spinal cord called gliocam. So you might have both things happening: direct viral provocation causing killer T cell invasion, and molecular mimicry causing misdirected attacks.
A double whammy. So what about treatment? If we know EBV is the trigger, can we just get rid of it?
That's the big hope, and some researchers are already testing therapies that target EBV directly. Sabatino himself said, and I'm quoting, "The big hope here is that if we can interfere with EBV, we can have a big effect, not just on MS, but on other disorders and improve the quality of life for many, many people."
Other disorders, EBV is linked to more than just MS.
Lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, long COVID, and several types of cancer, including certain lymphomas and nasopharyngeal cancer. EBV is estimated to cause about 200,000 cancers globally every year.
One virus, all of that.
And here's something that could change everything. Moderna has an EBV vaccine in clinical trials right now. It's an mRNA vaccine, similar technology to the COVID vaccines. If it works, you could potentially prevent MS before it ever starts by stopping the EBV infection that triggers it.
That would be incredible. Vaccinate teenagers before they encounter EBV and potentially wipe out MS within a generation.
It's not guaranteed. Remember, 95% of people get EBV and only a fraction develop MS, so there are clearly other factors like genetics involved, but removing the necessary trigger could be transformative.
How far along is the Moderna vaccine?
It's in phase 1 clinical trials, which means they're testing safety and immune response in a small group of volunteers. If it progresses through phase 2 and phase 3, we could potentially see an approved vaccine within the next 5 to 10 years. But vaccine development is notoriously unpredictable.
What does this mean for the nearly 1 million Americans already living with MS?
For them, the hope is in therapies that target EBV in the body after infection. If you can suppress that one gene that's uniquely active in MS patients or clear EBV infected cells from the nervous system, you might be able to slow or stop the disease progression.
This feels like watching a decades-long mystery finally come into focus. From there's a weird correlation to here's the specific gene, here are the specific cells, here's the mechanism.
Step by step. The 2022 Harvard study proved EBV was required. Now the 2026 UCSF study is showing us how it actually pulls the trigger. And the study was funded by the National Institutes of Health across multiple grants. This is serious, well-funded science.
I think what strikes me most is the timeline. EBV was discovered in 1964. The first hints it was connected to MS go back to the 1980s. The Harvard proof came in 2022. And now in 2026, we're seeing the mechanism.
60 years from discovery to understanding, and that's actually fast by the standards of virology. Some viral connections to disease took even longer to establish. What's accelerating things now is the combination of advanced genomic sequencing, single-cell analysis, and larger patient cohorts. We can ask questions today that were literally impossible to answer 10 years ago.
A virus that 95% of us carry hiding in plain sight, quietly causing one of the most devastating neurological diseases we know. Wild. Let me ask a basic question that might be on people's minds. If EBV is so dangerous, why does 95% of the population carry it without developing MS or cancer?
That's the central puzzle. The answer seems to be a combination of genetics and immune regulation. Most people's immune systems keep EBV in check, the virus stays dormant in your B cells, the immune system monitors it, and nothing goes wrong. But in some people, specific genetic variants, particularly in genes related to the immune system called HLA genes, create a vulnerability.
So you need the virus and the genetic susceptibility.
That's the emerging picture. The Harvard study showed EBV is necessary. Almost nobody gets MS without it. But it's clearly not sufficient on its own, since most EBV carriers never develop MS. The genetic factors determine who's at risk, and EBV pulls the trigger.
Are there other environmental factors too?
Vitamin D deficiency is a major one. MS rates are dramatically higher in countries farther from the equator, where people get less sunlight and produce less vitamin D. Smoking is another risk factor. Childhood obesity has been linked. It's likely a perfect storm of genetic predisposition, EBV infection, and environmental factors converging.
Which makes the vaccine approach even more elegant. You can't control someone's genetics, but you can stop the viral trigger.
And here's one more thing worth knowing. The UCSF study only looked at 18 participants, 13 with MS, 5 without. That's a small sample size. The results are striking, but they need to be replicated in larger cohorts.
That's fair, but the consistency across multiple studies, Harvard, Stanford, now UCSF, each finding a different piece of the puzzle, that pattern is hard to ignore.
Science is a mosaic. Each study adds a tile, and the picture that's emerging after decades of work is remarkably clear. Epstein-Barr virus is at the center of multiple sclerosis, and we're finally understanding how.
And now we're finally catching it in the act.